My name is Hamish, 57 years old, a retired construction manager with calloused hands and a weathered heart. That rainy afternoon in Seattle, I was crossing the street to meet my son after 5 years of silence. We were supposed to start healing. Then I heard it. A desperate shout from behind me. "Stop, it is a trap!" I froze, confused. Seconds later, I understood why that stranger had just saved my life. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like button if you believe in second chances. I spent 30 years of my life in construction. 30 years of early mornings, late nights, and weekends sacrificed to provide for my family. My wife Laura, my son Bryan, and my daughter Amanda were my world, even if I was not always there to show it. I built structures that would stand the test of time, but ironically, I failed to build the same endurance into my family relationships. Laura was the glue that held us together. She understood my long hours were not about escaping family life, but about securing our future. She translated my silent dedication into words the kids could understand. When she was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer 7 years ago, our world crumbled. The medical bills piled up alongside my work responsibilities. I took on extra projects to cover the costs, which meant less time at her bedside. I thought I was doing the right thing, fighting in my own way, by ensuring we could afford the best treatments. Bryan saw it differently. "You are never here," he said one night at the hospital. His voice was tight with anger and exhaustion. "Mom needs you, not your money." I tried to explain that someone had to work, had to keep our lives from falling apart financially. But to a 25-year-old watching his mother fade away, my explanations sounded like excuses. Laura died on a Tuesday morning. I had left the hospital just 2 hours earlier to check on an emergency at a job site. Bryan was the one holding her hand when she took her last breath. I did not even get to say goodbye. At the funeral, grief made us strangers. Bryan stood rigid beside me during the service, but when people dispersed to the reception, he finally erupted. "You put concrete and deadlines before your own wife," he shouted, his face contorted with grief. "You were not there when she needed you most. You were never there for any of us." His words cut deeper than any construction accident ever had. Worse still was realizing that from his perspective he was right. I had been physically absent for many pivotal moments. The fact that my mind and heart were always with them did not change their experience of my empty chair at dinner tables and school events. That day, something broke between us that seemed impossible to repair. Bryan walked away from the funeral with his wife Sophia, and with that departure, he also walked out of my life. He blocked my number, moved without telling me where, and made it clear through Amanda that he wanted no contact. His final blow was denying me access to my granddaughter, Lily. She was only 3 when Laura died, and Bryan ensured I became a stranger to her. 5 years passed without seeing her face, without hearing her laugh, without watching her grow. Amanda tried to mediate at first, but living overseas in Germany made it difficult. Our calls grew further apart as she built her own life far from our family wreckage. Her voice always carried a tired sympathy, like she had accepted that some things could not be fixed. The construction company I had dedicated my life to offered early retirement with a decent pension. With no reason to keep pushing myself, I accepted. My days became empty spaces filled with home repair projects that no one would see, and fishing trips where the silence was both blessing and curse. Depression settled in like an unwelcome tenant. I found myself driving past playgrounds, watching grandparents with their grandchildren, feeling the hollow ache of what I had lost. I started avoiding social gatherings where people would inevitably ask about my family. The truth was too heavy to carry into casual conversation. My neighbor Frank would invite me over for football games, but his well-intentioned questions about patching things up with the boy only deepened my sense of failure. Nobody understood that reconciliation requires two willing participants. I had only myself. Each birthday and holiday that passed without contact felt like another brick added to the wall between us. I sent cards to Bryan's old address, knowing they would be returned. I wrapped Christmas presents for Lily that gathered dust in my closet. Hope dwindled to a flicker, but I could never quite let it die completely. That is what makes unexpected messages so dangerous. They reignite what should stay properly banked. The text message arrived on a Tuesday morning, exactly 7 years after Laura died. Dad, I think it is time we talked. Meet me at Raindrop Café on Pike Street this Friday at 2 p.m. I will be bringing Lily. Just 12 words that sent my world spinning. I read it 20 times, analyzing every syllable for hidden meanings or signs of reluctance. Was this real? Was Bryan actually reaching out? The signature at the end, just a simple B, looked authentic. I called Amanda immediately, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. He reached out, I said, when she answered, not bothering with a greeting. Bryan wants to meet. Her pause was telling. That is unexpected. Are you sure it is from him? I confirmed the number matched the last one I had for him. Amanda sounded cautiously optimistic, but warned me not to get my hopes too high. Just be prepared for anything, Dad. People do not change overnight. But 5 years is not overnight, I thought. 5 years is long enough for wounds to scar over, for anger to cool, for perspective to shift. Maybe becoming a father had softened Bryan, made him understand my position better. Maybe Lily was asking about me. Whatever the reason, I was being offered a second chance, and I intended to make the most of it. The 3 days before our meeting stretched endlessly. I cleaned my house obsessively, though I knew the meeting was at a café. I researched age-appropriate gifts for 8-year-old girls. I settled on a delicate silver bracelet with a lily charm and a collection of books Amanda said were popular with children Lily's age. I wanted her to know I had been thinking about her all these years. Thursday evening, I drove to the barber for the first haircut I had cared about in years. The barber trimmed my gray hair and shaped my beard, transforming me from a disheveled old man to someone who might make a decent first impression. I bought a new blue button-down shirt that the saleswoman assured me brought out my eyes. That night, sleep evaded me. I rehearsed what I would say, practicing apologies and explanations, reminding myself not to make excuses or get defensive. I would listen more than speak. I would focus on the future, not dwell on the past. I would be patient if Bryan was still angry. The important thing was opening the door to a relationship. Friday morning dawned gray and drizzly. Typical Seattle weather that normally would have dampened my spirits. Today, even the rain could not touch my mood. I was going to see my son. I was going to meet my granddaughter. I left home 3 hours early, though the drive to Seattle would take less than 1. I could not bear sitting at home watching the clock. I would rather wait at the cafe or nearby, gathering my thoughts. Traffic was mercifully light. I found parking 6 blocks from the cafe and decided to walk the rest of the way. The fresh air might calm my nerves, clear my head. I tucked the carefully wrapped gifts into my jacket to protect them from the light rain. As I walked, I imagined Lily's face. Would she look like Bryan did at that age? Would she have Laura's smile? Would she be shy with me or curious? Would she call me Grandpa? Or would I be just Hamish to her? Each possibility sent a different emotion coursing through me. The rain began falling harder as I approached the final intersection before the cafe. I could see the raindrop sign just up the block, its blue neon blurred by the rain. My heartbeat quickened. In just minutes, I would see my son. In just minutes, years of silence might begin to end. I waited for the walk signal, shifting my weight from foot to foot, rehearsing my opening words one last time. The signal changed, and I stepped off the curb, my focus entirely on the café. Ahead, my mind already sitting across from Bryan, already saying how sorry I was, how much I had missed him. That is when I heard the shout that would change everything. "Stop, it is a trap." The voice cut through the rain and traffic noise like a physical force, stopping me mid-step. I turned to see a man on the sidewalk I had just left, his arm outstretched, face urgent with alarm. He was perhaps 40, wearing a dark jacket, his expression a mask of panic. For a split second, I thought he must be shouting at someone else. But his eyes were locked directly on mine, his entire body language focused in my direction. Confusion froze me in place, one foot still on the curb, the other on the street. What trap? Was this some kind of scam? A joke? Then I heard it. The roar of an engine, the squeal of tires unable to grip wet asphalt. I turned my head just in time to see a delivery truck barreling toward the intersection. Its horn blared a desperate warning as it ran the red light, the driver fighting for control. Had I continued walking, had I taken just 2 more steps, I would have been directly in its path. The truck thundered through the intersection, missing me by mere feet. The force of its passing tugged at my jacket. The spray from its tires soaked my pants. The sound of its horn continued to echo in my ears long after it had passed. My legs turned to water. I stumbled back to the curb, adrenaline making my vision pulse at the edges. My heart hammered so violently I feared it might burst from my chest. I had nearly died, if not for the warning. "Hey, you okay?" The man who had shouted was suddenly beside me, a steadying hand on my elbow. Up close, I could see the concern etched into his face, the remnants of alarm still visible in his eyes. Yes. Thank you." The words seemed grossly inadequate. "You saved my life." He shook his head, rain dripping from his dark hair. "Saw that truck coming from back there. Driver was laying on his horn. Looked like the brakes were gone." "How did you know to say trap?" I asked, still trying to process what had happened. A small, grim smile crossed his face. "Military habit. Quicker than yelling 'look out' or something. Gets the point across." I extended my hand, still trembling with receding adrenaline. "I am Hamish." "Jackson," he replied, his handshake firm. "I teach emergency response training now. Old habits die hard, I guess." A couple of pedestrians had stopped asking if we needed help or if they should call someone. Jackson assured them everything was fine now. As they moved on, I checked my watch. Still 40 minutes before I was supposed to meet Bryan. "Can I buy you a coffee? Least I can do to thank you." I gestured toward the Raindrop Café. Jackson hesitated, glancing at his own watch. "Appreciate it, but I have somewhere I need to be. Kind of time-sensitive." I nodded, understanding, but somehow reluctant to part from this stranger who had just saved my life. It seemed wrong to simply say goodbye and walk away after such a momentous intersection of our paths. "Well, at least take my number," I offered, pulling out my phone. "Maybe rain check on that coffee." Something in my expression must have conveyed my sincerity because Jackson nodded, pulling out his own phone. We exchanged numbers, promised to connect later. "Be careful crossing streets," he said with a small smile as he turned to go. "And whatever you are headed to, good luck." I watched him walk away, this random stranger who had altered the course of my day, perhaps my entire life, with 4 simple words. How strange that the universe sometimes places exactly the right person in exactly the right place at the right time. The walk signal cycled again. This time I waited until the intersection was completely clear before crossing, hyper-aware of every vehicle, every sound. My body still hummed with leftover adrenaline, making each sensation sharper, more immediate. As I approached the Raindrop Café, I tried to settle my racing heart. What a story I would have to tell Bryan. How strange that I had nearly missed our reunion in the most permanent way possible. Perhaps it was a sign, a reminder of how precious and precarious life was, how important this meeting could be. I had no idea then that the real trap had nothing to do with that intersection or that truck. I had no idea that the warning Jackson had shouted would take on an entirely different meaning in just 1 hour. The Raindrop Café was exactly as pictured on their website. Warm lighting, rustic wooden tables, the rich aroma of coffee beans. A haven from the Seattle rain. I arrived 15 minutes early, still shaken from my near miss, but determined to be composed for Bryan and Lily. I chose a table near the back with a clear view of the door. I wanted to see them the moment they arrived. The server, a young woman with purple-tipped hair and kind eyes, took my order for a simple black coffee and asked if I was waiting for someone. "My son and granddaughter," I said, unable to keep the pride from my voice. "I have not seen them in 5 years." Her smile softened. "That is wonderful. Reunions are my favorite thing to witness here." My coffee arrived, but I barely touched it. My eyes remained fixed on the door, my heart leaping at each new arrival. 2:15 came and went. Perhaps Bryan was running late. Traffic in Seattle was unpredictable. Maybe Lily had needed a last-minute bathroom break or forgotten something at home. By 2:30, I sent a casual text, "At Raindrop Café, table in the back. Looking forward to seeing you both." The message showed as delivered but not read. At 2:45, I called. The call went straight to voicemail. I did not leave a message. By 3 o'clock, the purple-haired server was giving me sympathetic glances. I ordered another coffee I did not want just to justify keeping the table. "They must be stuck in traffic," I told her with a confidence I no longer felt. 3:30. Another call. Another text. No response. The gifts in my jacket pocket seemed to grow heavier with each passing minute. The bracelet for Lily. The books I had so carefully selected. Tokens of love that might never be delivered. At 4 o'clock, a full 2 hours after our scheduled meeting time, the truth became unavoidable. They were not coming. Bryan had either changed his mind, or worse, had never intended to come at all. The server stopped by again, her expression gentle with concern. "Can I get you anything else?" "No, thank you." My voice sounded distant even to myself. "I think I have been stood up." She hesitated, then said softly, "I am sorry. Do you want to talk about it?" I shook my head. The last thing I needed was to break down in front of a stranger in a coffee shop. I paid my bill, leaving a generous tip to compensate for occupying the table for so long. As I gathered my jacket to leave, my phone vibrated. My heart lurched with hope. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe there had been an emergency. But the text was not from Bryan's number. It was from a number I did not recognize. "Hope you enjoyed your wasted trip. Never try to contact me again." I stared at the message, trying to make sense of it. The realization dawned slowly, painfully. This had been Bryan's plan all along. Get me to drive to Seattle, sit alone in a cafe, waiting for hours for a reunion that was never going to happen. A deliberate, calculated act of cruelty. I called the unknown number. It went straight to an automated message. "The person you are trying to reach is not accepting calls at this time." I tried Bryan's regular number again. Same result. The walk back to my car was a blur. The rain had intensified, soaking through my jacket, but I barely noticed. The physical discomfort paled in comparison to the emotional devastation. My son had not only rejected reconciliation, he had gone out of his way to hurt me, to punish me further. Sitting in my car, I could not bring myself to start the engine. The tears I had been holding back finally broke free. I wept like I had not since Laura died, great heaving sobs that shook my entire body. The stranger's warning echoed in my mind, "Stop, it is a trap." How prophetic those words had been, though not in the way either of us had imagined. The trap had not been the truck that could have ended my life. The trap had been the false hope, the cruel deception orchestrated by my own son, which was worse, to die quickly under the wheels of a truck, or to have your heart shattered by the one person who should love you unconditionally. At that moment, I honestly did not know. I do not remember driving out of Seattle. The rain blurred not just my windshield, but my thoughts, my sense of time and direction. I found myself on the waterfront parking haphazardly near a public pier. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to be anywhere but inside my own head with the crushing realization of what had just happened. The rain had tapered to a drizzle, but I would have walked through a hurricane. Nothing could make me feel worse than I already did. I wandered the pier, watching ferries come and go, their passengers rushing toward homes and loved ones with a purposefulness I envied. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Probably Amanda checking on how the meeting went. How could I tell her what Bryan had done? How could I put into words the calculated cruelty of it? I ignored the notification. 10 minutes later, another vibration. This time I pulled out the phone ready to silence it completely. But the message was not from Amanda. "Hey, this is Jackson from the crosswalk earlier. Just checking if everything went okay with whatever you were headed to." The unexpected concern from a complete stranger broke something in me. Here was someone who had known me for all of 2 minutes, showing more care than my own son. I found myself typing back, "No, it did not go okay, not at all." His response came quickly. "Sorry to hear that. Want to talk about it? I am at Murphy's Pub on Harbor Street if you need a friendly ear." I stared at the message for a long moment. The proper response would be to thank him for his concern, but decline. We were strangers. My problems were not his burden. But the thought of going home to an empty house, to silent rooms, where I would replay the day's events endlessly, was unbearable. At least in a pub with noise and people and distraction, I might momentarily escape the crushing weight of rejection. "On my way," I texted back. Murphy's was a typical waterfront establishment. Dark wood nautical decorations, the scent of beer and fried food. Jackson sat at the bar, nursing a beer looking much as he had earlier, except drier. He raised a hand when I walked in. "You look like you could use this more than me," he said, sliding his barely touched beer in my direction as I took the stool beside him. "That obvious, huh?" I tried to smile but failed. "Want to talk about it? Or would you rather just drink in silence? Both are valid options." His straightforwardness was oddly comforting. No pity, no awkward attempts at cheering me up. "My son stood me up," I said, after taking a long swallow of beer. "Actually worse than stood me up. He set me up. Made me think we were going to reconcile after 5 years of not speaking. I sat in that café for 2 hours like an idiot waiting for him and my granddaughter." Jackson nodded, signaling the bartender for 2 more beers. "That is rough. Really rough." Then I got a text from a number I did not recognize. "Hope you enjoyed your wasted trip. Never try to contact me again." That is it. 5 years of hoping for reconciliation, and I get that. "Jesus," Jackson muttered. "What happened 5 years ago, if you do not mind me asking?" The beer and the anonymity of the moment loosened my tongue. I found myself telling this stranger everything. Laura's death, my absence, Bryan's anger, the funeral confrontation, the years of silence, my unsuccessful attempts to reach out, the birthdays and holidays spent alone. Jackson listened without interruption, without judgment, just occasional nods to show he was following. When I finally ran out of words, he was quiet for a moment. I was on my way to the cemetery when I saw you at that crosswalk, he finally said. Today is the anniversary of my dad's death. I am sorry, I said, meaning it. Our relationship was complicated too. Different circumstances, similar outcome. He took a sip of his beer. He was military, gone most of my childhood. When he finally retired and wanted to be part of my life, I resented him, kept him at a distance. We were just starting to rebuild when he had a stroke. The parallel was not lost on me. At least you were trying to rebuild. Yeah, but too late. That is the thing about time. You think you have plenty until suddenly you do not. He looked at me directly. The difference is you and your son both still have time. Not if he will not speak to me. There are other ways to reach people. Other bridges. Like what I have tried everything. Cards, letters, messages through Amanda. Jackson considered this. Tell me about your granddaughter. And your daughter. Where does she fit in all this? As I described Amanda living overseas, her occasional visits, her reluctance to get involved in the conflict between Bryan and me, Jackson listened thoughtfully. When I spoke of Lily, my voice softened, though I could say little beyond her age and the few details Amanda had shared. So Amanda still speaks to both of you, Jackson noted. She is a potential bridge. And your granddaughter. Kids have a way of bringing people together. Bryan uses Lily as a weapon. Keeping her from me hurts more than anything else he could do. Maybe. Or maybe he is just protecting her from what he sees as a painful situation. Jackson tapped his finger against his glass. You know what I think the real trap was today? I looked at him quizzically. Not the truck. Not even your son's setup. The trap is that you are letting him control your happiness, your sense of worth. You are waiting for his forgiveness instead of building a life that does not require it. And his words stung with truth. I had put my emotional well-being in the hands of someone who had no interest in handling it carefully. So what would you do? I asked. I would start by contacting Amanda, completely honestly. Tell her exactly what happened today. Tell her you are not asking her to take sides, but you would like her help in establishing some kind of relationship with Lily. Even if it is just letters or video calls at first. The idea had merit, but also risks. I do not want to put Amanda in the middle. She is already in the middle. The question is whether she is going to be an active participant in a potential solution or just a bystander to ongoing hurt. We talked for hours, about fathers and sons, about mistakes and forgiveness, about second and third and fourth chances. As the evening wore on, I felt something I had not expected, a lightening of the burden I had carried for 5 years. By the time we parted, exchanging firm handshakes and promises to stay in touch, I had something else unexpected. A plan. The next morning I called Amanda. It was evening in Germany, and I caught her just after dinner. I told her everything. The text invitation, my excited preparation, the hours waiting in the café, and finally the cruel message from the unknown number. "Oh, Dad," she sighed, her voice tight with emotion. "I am so sorry. I had no idea he would do something like that." "I am not telling you this to turn you against your brother," I assured her. "I just need you to understand where things stand." "Bryan told me he had not heard from you in months," she said. "He made it sound like you had given up on reconciling." That hurt. The realization that Bryan had been actively manipulating the narrative even with his sister. I never gave up, Amanda. I never would. There was a long pause on the line. Dad, can I tell you something? Something that might upset you? My heart clenched. Of course. Bryan has been struggling. His marriage to Sophia ended last year. He has been raising Lily mostly on his own with some help from Sophia's parents. He lost his job 3 months ago. The news hit me like a physical blow. My son had been going through hell, and I had known nothing about it. Despite everything, my first instinct was concern for him. Why did he not reach out? I could have helped. Pride, I guess. The same reason he has held on to this anger for so long. He cannot admit he might have been wrong about you or that he might need you. Amanda, I need to ask you something important, and I want you to be completely honest with me. I took a deep breath. Would it be possible for me to have some kind of relationship with Lily, even if Bryan is not ready to reconcile? The silence stretched long enough that I feared I had asked too much. Actually, Amanda finally said, I think that might be exactly what both of you need. We developed a plan. Amanda would speak with Bryan not to condemn his actions, but to suggest that allowing Lily to know her grandfather might be beneficial for everyone. In the meantime, I would write letters to Lily, real physical letters that Amanda would forward. Nothing manipulative, nothing that put Bryan in a bad light, just grandfather to granddaughter communication. She loves art and stories, Amanda told me. Start there. That night, I wrote my first letter to Lily. I told her about her grandmother Laura's love of painting. I described the treehouse I had built for her father when he was a boy. I included a simple sketch of our family cat from years ago that used to sleep in Bryan's crib. I sent the letter to Amanda, who promised to forward it with her own letter explaining who I was. I had no expectations. Just writing the letter had been therapeutic, a connection to Lily that existed even if she never read my words. Weeks passed. I wrote to Lily every Sunday evening. I told her about my fishing trips, about the birds that visited my backyard, about the books I was reading. I asked questions about her life, her school, her friends, though I knew responses might never come. Jackson and I met for coffee regularly. His friendship became an unexpected anchor in my life. He had no connection to my past, no preconceived notions about who I was or what I had done wrong. He simply accepted me as the person I was now, and that acceptance was profoundly healing. 3 months after that rainy day in Seattle, a small envelope arrived in my mailbox. The handwriting on the address was clearly Amanda's, but inside was a folded piece of construction paper covered in the unmistakable artwork of a child. Dear Grandpa, it read in careful printing. Thank you for your letters. I have a cat, too. His name is Pickles. Do you like unicorns? I love them. From Lily. I sat on my front steps, that colorful paper in my trembling hands, and wept. Not from sadness this time, but from a joy so overwhelming it could only express itself through tears. My granddaughter had called me Grandpa. She had drawn me a picture. She had asked me a question that invited response. I called Amanda immediately. She wrote to me. I said, my voice choked. I know, Amanda replied, and I could hear her smile. Bryan knows too. He read your letters first, of course. I think they touched him more than he wants to admit. Is he angry about this? He was at first, but Lily was so excited about having a grandfather who sends real mail. And your letters have been so kind. No guilt trips, no passive-aggressive comments. Just love. She paused. He has been reading Laura's journals. I think he is starting to see things differently. That night I wrote back to Lily. Yes, I told her I did like unicorns. I drew her a picture of one not very well but with great enthusiasm. I asked about Pickles the cat. I told her about the time her father had tried to bring home a frog as a pet, and it had escaped in our kitchen. Our correspondence continued. Every letter from Lily was a treasure. I kept them all in a special box, rereading them when loneliness crept in. Through her innocent words, I began to know this wonderful child who was part of me, part of Laura, part of our family story that had seemed so tragically interrupted. Jackson suggested I might be able to help Bryan financially without making it seem like charity. Through Amanda, I learned that Bryan had been freelancing but struggling to find stable work in his field of architectural design. I know some people in construction, I told Amanda. Maybe I could put in a word, help him get some contracts. Amanda hesitated. He might see that as interference. What if he does not know it is coming from me? What if it just seems like his portfolio caught someone's attention? It was deceptive, perhaps, but born from love. I contacted former colleagues describing Bryan's work without mentioning our relationship. I invested anonymously in a project he was trying to get off the ground. Slowly, invisibly, I tried to make his path easier while respecting the boundaries he had established. It was not the relationship I wanted, but it was something. It was a way of being his father, even if he would not acknowledge me as such. And all the while, Lily and I grew closer through our letters, our drawings, our shared stories. She became real to me, not just an idea or a photograph, but a person with preferences and opinions and a distinct way of seeing the world. It was not perfect. It was not what I had dreamed of. But it was more than I had dared to hope for after that cruel day in Seattle. And then, 11 months after the fake meeting at Raindrop Café, Amanda called with news that stopped my heart. Lily is having a birthday party next month, she said. Bryan says you are invited. The invitation came officially through Amanda, not directly from Bryan. Still, it was more than I had dared to hope for. Lily was turning 9 and the party would be at Bryan's home, a place I had never seen, an address I had never known until now. He is still very reserved about this, Amanda warned me over the phone. Do not expect a warm welcome. But he agrees that Lily should know you, and her birthday seemed like a natural opportunity. Will you be there? I asked, already anticipating the tension. I am flying in the day before. I will be there the whole time, I promise. Her voice softened. Dad, this is huge. Whatever happens, remember that. In the month leading up to the party, I vacillated between excitement and terror. What would I say to Bryan after 6 years of silence? How would Lily react to meeting me in person? Would Bryan change his mind? At the last minute, Jackson became my sounding board, listening patiently as I cycled through scenarios and practiced what I might say. Just be yourself, he advised. The self that writes those letters Lily loves, not the self that is desperate for Bryan's forgiveness. That puts too much pressure on everyone. I shopped carefully for Lily's gift, an art set Amanda had confirmed she would love, along with a handmade wooden box to keep it in. For the box, I carved a unicorn on the lid, a private reference to our early correspondence. The day before the party, Amanda called from Seattle. Just checking in. You ready for tomorrow? As ready as I will ever be, I replied. How is Bryan? Her hesitation told me everything. Nervous, but committed to doing this, for Lily's sake. That is enough, I said, meaning it. That is more than enough. I barely slept that night. At dawn, I was already up checking and rechecking Lily's gift, planning my route to avoid the traffic that might make me late. I chose my clothing carefully. Casual, but not sloppy, a blue sweater Laura had always liked on me. The drive to Seattle was a blur of anxiety and rehearsed greetings. Bryan's home turned out to be a modest townhouse in a family-friendly neighborhood. Children's bicycles lined the communal rack out front. Basketball hoops stood at regular intervals along the street. It was a good place to raise a child. I parked a block away, giving myself a moment to compose my thoughts before approaching. The gift for Lily seemed simultaneously too much and not enough. How do you encapsulate 6 years of missed birthdays in one present? Amanda met me at the door, her smile a balm to my nerves. She hugged me tightly, whispering, "It is going to be okay," in my ear. The house was decorated with streamers and balloons. A unicorn theme dominated. Unicorn tablecloth, unicorn plates, a unicorn banner proclaiming, "Happy Birthday, Lily." The care that had gone into the decorations spoke volumes about Bryan as a father. The other children and their parents were gathered in the backyard. Through the sliding glass door, I could see Lily, my granddaughter, for the first time in 6 years. She was tall for her age, with Laura's chestnut hair and bright smile. She wore a tiara with a unicorn horn attached and was laughing at something another child had said. And then Bryan stepped into the living room from the kitchen. 6 years had changed him. His face was leaner, with the beginning of lines around his eyes that had not been there before. His hair was shorter, more professionally styled than the casual look he had sported when we last saw each other. He stopped when he saw me, his expression unreadable. Not welcoming, but not openly hostile either. "Bryan," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Thank you for inviting me." He nodded stiffly. "Lily has been excited to meet you. She talks about your letters all the time." The awkward moment stretched between us, years of unspoken words filling the space. Amanda touched my arm gently. "Why do not we go say hello to Lily? She has been asking when you would arrive." We moved toward the backyard. Bryan did not accompany us, but did not stop us either. Small steps, I reminded myself. This was already more than I had had yesterday. The moment Lily saw me, her face transformed with recognition and excitement. She broke away from her friends and ran toward me. "Grandpa, you came!" She threw her arms around my waist, hugging me with the uninhibited enthusiasm only children possess. I knelt down to her level, taking in every detail of her face. "Happy birthday, Lily. It is so wonderful to finally meet you." "Did you bring pickles with you?" she asked, looking around expectantly. I laughed, reminded of our correspondence. "No, sweetheart. Pickles likes to stay home. But I brought something else for you." I handed her the wrapped gift. She tore into it with appropriate birthday fervor, gasping when she saw the art supplies and running her fingers over the carved unicorn on the box. "You made this, she asked, eyes wide. "I did. Just for you. It is the best present ever." She hugged me again, then grabbed my hand. "Come meet my friends. I told them all about my grandpa, who writes me letters and draws unicorns." As she led me into the yard, I glanced back toward the house. Bryan stood at the sliding door watching us. For just a moment, I thought I saw his expression soften. The party progressed with the controlled chaos typical of children's birthdays. I found myself enlisted to help with games, to distribute cake, to admire presents. The other parents were friendly, asking how long I had been in Seattle, assuming I lived far away since Lily had made such a big deal of my letters. "Just visiting for the birthday," I said, not wanting to complicate the day with explanations. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, I found myself increasingly anxious about what would happen next. Would Bryan ask me to leave as well? Was this a one-time event, a gift to Lily, but not the beginning of ongoing contact? Amanda must have sensed my concern. "I told Bryan you and I would clean up while he gets Lily settled with her new toys," she said. "Gives us a little more time here." We gathered plates and cups, took down decorations, and restored order to the backyard. Bryan moved between the living room and Lily's room, barely acknowledging us but not asking us to leave either. When the house was mostly back in order, Lily came bounding out of her room. "Grandpa, do you have to go now? Cannot you stay for dinner?" I looked to Bryan, unwilling to overstep. To my surprise, he nodded slightly. "We ordered pizza," he said, his first direct words to me since the initial greeting. "There is plenty." That evening was surreal. The four of us, Bryan, Amanda, Lily, and myself, sat around Bryan's dining table eating pizza. Lily dominated the conversation, telling me about school, her friends, her cat, jumping from topic to topic with childish enthusiasm. I noticed Bryan watching me interact with her, studying me, taking my measure as a grandfather, perhaps. After dinner, Lily insisted on showing me her room, her books, her collection of stuffed unicorns. "This one came with your very first letter," she told me, holding up a small plush unicorn I had indeed enclosed. "Dad said it was from you, even though you did not say so in the letter." I glanced at Bryan, surprised. He had given me credit for the gift, rather than claiming it himself. A small thing, perhaps, but it felt significant. When it was time for Lily's bedtime, she asked if I would read her a story. Again, I looked to Bryan for permission. Again, he nodded. As I read to my granddaughter for the first time, a story about a brave unicorn, naturally, I felt a piece of my heart that had been missing for 6 years slide back into place. This was what I had been missing. This simple, profound connection to the next generation of my family. When Lily was finally settled for sleep, I knew it was time to leave. Amanda had already called a car service, planning to stay another day with Bryan and Lily. At the door, Bryan finally spoke more than a few words to me. "Thank you for coming. It meant a lot to Lily." "Thank you for inviting me," I replied. "She is amazing, Bryan. You have done an incredible job with her." He nodded, accepting the compliment, but not engaging further. As I turned to leave, he spoke again. "Amanda told me what happened. Last year, at the café." I froze, uncertain how to respond. "I did not know about the truck," he continued. The near accident. When she told me, I realized how badly that could have ended. Over a stupid, cruel prank." I turned back to face him, seeing vulnerability in his expression for the first time. "It was not me who sent that text," he said. "It was a friend who thought he was, I do not know, defending me somehow. I did not know about it until afterward. I should have reached out then to tell you that. I did not. I am sorry." The apology, however limited in scope, was more than I had expected. "It is okay," I said, though it had been far from okay. "No, it is not." Bryan looked down. "None of this has been okay. I just do not know how to. I am not ready to." "I understand," I said, and I did. Healing would not happen in one evening. "Take whatever time you need. I will be here." As I walked to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because everything was resolved. It was not. Not because Bryan had fully forgiven me. He had not. But because I had seen my granddaughter. Because a door that had been firmly closed was now at least slightly ajar. My phone buzzed as I started the engine. A text from Jackson. "How did it go?" I smiled, thinking of how to summarize such a complex, emotional day. Finally, I typed, "It was a beginning." 1 year has passed since Lily's birthday party. 1 year of slow, cautious rebuilding. 1 year of letters that became phone calls that became monthly visits. 1 year of getting to know my granddaughter, not just through written words, but through shared experiences. Fishing trips, museum visits, baking cookies together in my kitchen. Bryan remains reserved, but the edge of hostility has softened. We are not close, not yet, but we are civil. We can sit together at Lily's school events without tension filling the air between us. We can discuss practical matters related to my visits without argument. It is progress. Amanda visits more frequently now, bridging the gap between us with her gentle presence. She confided recently that she had felt torn between her brother and me for years, unable to fully connect with either of us for fear of betraying the other. Now she says she feels like she has a family again, imperfect but healing. Jackson has become more than the stranger who saved me from a truck. He is my closest friend, a weekly fishing companion, a trusted confidant. We laugh about how dramatically our lives intersected. His warning shout, my frozen moment of confusion, the truck barreling through the intersection. If I had not been running late to visit my father's grave, I would not have been there, he told me once. If you had not been going to meet Bryan, you would not have been there either. Weird how things line up sometimes. Weird indeed. The trap I thought I was walking into that day, Bryan's cruel prank, led me instead to a moment that changed everything. Had I not been on that specific corner at that specific moment, I would never have met Jackson. Had Jackson not shouted his warning, I might not be here at all. I think often about the layers of meaning in his shouted words. Stop, it is a trap. The truck was one trap, yes. Bryan's fake meeting was another. But the real trap, the one I had been caught in for years before that day, was my own inability to move forward without my son's forgiveness. I had trapped myself in grief and regret and stagnation, waiting for a reconciliation that might never have come on its own. Sometimes I wonder if I would have eventually broken free without that dramatic day in Seattle. If I would have found the strength to build a life not defined by Bryan's rejection. I like to think I would have, but the truth is, sometimes we need a shock to jolt us out of our patterns. 6 months ago, I started a support group for estranged parents. We meet weekly in a community center near my home. Some are like me, cut off by adult children. Others are separated by addiction, by geographical distance, by the interference of other family members. All share the same ache, the same sense of incompleteness. I tell them my story, not as a promise that their situations will resolve as mine is beginning to, but as evidence that healing can take unexpected forms. That sometimes the path to reconciliation is indirect. That rebuilding a life worth living is valuable regardless of whether estrangement ends. Bryan called me last week, the first time he has initiated contact, rather than merely responding to my outreach. Lily has a school play coming up, he said. She is playing the lead unicorn. I could hear the smile in his voice, the pride. She really wants you there. I would not miss it for anything, I assured him. Then after a brief hesitation, maybe we could all get dinner afterward. You, me, Lily, Amanda, if she can fly in. I would like that very much, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the emotion swelling in my chest. Good, he replied. That is good. After we hung up, I sat on my deck watching the sunset, thinking about traps and warnings and second chances. About the stranger who became a friend, who became family in a way. About how loss can sharpen our appreciation for what remains, for what can be rebuilt. I had thought the worst moment of my life was when Laura died, but I was wrong. The worst was standing in that café realizing my son had deliberately led me there to hurt me. But even that moment, painful as it was, led to something valuable, led to change, led to growth. I thought I was walking toward a trap that rainy day in Seattle, but I was actually walking out of one, the trap of bitterness that had held me captive for too long. Sometimes to find your way home, you first have to endure the rain. What traps are holding you captive in your life right now? What warnings might you be missing or heeding? Have you ever had an unexpected encounter that changed everything for you? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that even the deepest wounds can begin to heal. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes our greatest pain can lead to our most meaningful growth.